ready?
Yes.
All right. Good evening and welcome everyone to this special meeting of Solvang City Council for Monday, July 26th. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31. 5:31, excuse me. So used to saying that, 5:31. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Infante.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Marona.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Urick.
Here.
All present.
Please stand for the pledge and I will say it tonight. You got me. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I don't have the written
Oh,
agenda.
apologies.
You want to do the
Next
public
item
comment?
is the public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct comments to the city council regarding items on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. We have no members of the public in person or on Zoom with us today.
All right, and then, do we have any council comments before we go into closed session?
Yes, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, the City Council will meet in closed session with legal counsel on one matter. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, petition for change of the City of Solvang for water right permit 15878, application A022423, authorizing diversion of water from the Santanez River underflow in Santa Barbara County before the State Water Resources Control Board Administrative Hearings Office.
All right, with that, we can go to closed session at 5:34. Think we're ready? All right, we're back from closed session at 6:18.
City Council met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1 on one matter, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9D1, petition for change of the City of Solvang for water right permit 15878, application A022423, authorizing diversion of water from the Santanez River underflow in Santa Barbara County before the State Water Resources Control Board Administrative Hearings Office. There is no reportable action.
All right, thank you. I think we're done.
Adjourn.
Adjourn at 6:18. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Solvang regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for Monday, July 26th. Now call the meeting to order at 6:30. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Infante,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Arona,
Here.
Councilmember Thomas,
Here.
Mayor Euring,
Here.
all present.
All right, thank you. And Councilmember Infante, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Take your hand over your heart. Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please read the next item on the agenda?
Next item on the agenda is ceremonial items and commendations. And we're going to start with Employee of the Quarter Award. This is only the second award since we have established this new program. Each employee who is selected by a committee for exceptional service receives an additional $100, and we also feature them in our quarterly newsletter that goes to all of the residents of Solvang as well. So this year, or this quarter, we have Raymond Kano, who is here with us today. So I'll ask Raymond to come up. All right, Raymond. So this award, you were nominated by two of your fellow employees, and the committee unanimously selected you as the next Employee of the Quarter, is for your leadership and taking over the temporary assignment of Supervisor for Maintenance Division and all of the great work that you have been doing in leading that division, and also going above and beyond, learning all of the budgeting and all of the administrative tasks that go with it. And everybody just felt that no matter what we ask you, you always have a very positive attitude and do a great job at keeping us going in the maintenance division. So this will be the plaque that will be displayed here at the City Hall. The picture will also go in the news, in the quarterly newsletter. Here is your award with $100. And I actually, since I finally got you here, and we also have your family here, so we have wife and little son Max over here to celebrate. Raymond has also reached a milestone of 5 years with the city this past May. So I'm also going to give you your 5-year service award.
Thank you.
Here you go. Thank you.
Take a couple. 1, 2, 3. Do one vertical. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Way to go, Ray.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I remember when he was first hired and looks just like a little kid. Wait a minute, you still do. Thank you, Ray, for all that you're doing for both parks and the maintenance, public works. And now we have a couple of presentations. First is Solvang Rotary presentation.
Good evening. I'm Ian Jacobson, 618 Alisal Road here in Solvang. I'm president of the Sunnyvale Rotary Club at the present time. It goes, you went your stint from July through June, so I'm the newly minted president. And I want to tell you about a program we're quite excited about, a leadership development program for people who are interested in the community leadership. And first I want to tell you a little bit about how it came about, and then what the program is, and then answer any questions that you have. In 2018, when we moved here, I was interested in getting involved in the community, and so I started talking with people. And of course, one of the questions they asked was, well, what have you done in the community in the past? And I told them about various things, and I said I've been involved with a program called Leadership Sunnyvale when we were up in the Bay Area. They said, oh, tell me more about that. And so I told them about that, and they said, gee, you know, we could use something like that here. And after I heard that a number of times, I thought, well, you know, I've had experience with it. This is something that I probably could do. But of course, Sunnyvale is quite different from Sunny Fields. And so I put together an advisory task force to help me tailor a program to meet the needs of a community here. Well, could we have the slides?
Yeah.
Okay. And why don't we go on to the next one?
Give me just a second. There we go.
Okay, so we had the express needs. I had prior experience with the advisory panel and thought it was an appropriate community service project for Rotary Club of Solvang. Next one, please. So this is something that is going to take place for approximately 2 months, starting on Saturday, the 11th of September, and going to Saturday, the 13th of November. So there are 8 scheduled sessions from 9 to noon on Saturdays, and it's going to be at the Senior Center. Next one, please. So what is it? It's a community-focused leadership program to prepare people who are in the community who want to move into leadership roles to be effective leaders, focusing on municipal government, public agencies, and not-for-profit organizations. It's going to be a pilot program since, you know, this is the first time. We're going to try and learn a lot from it, and it'll evolve as time goes on. And I'm being optimistic that it will continue to go on. So it's for people who are residents of the Santanez Valley. We thought that, you know, while we have separate little towns, that we're really all together here in the valley, and so there should be valley-wide in scope. People need to commit to active participation because it's not only for them as participants, but it's also them interacting with the other people in the class. And if people are, you know, just sign up and don't come to class, it really cheats the other people in the class for their perspectives. So we're looking for people with diverse perspectives so that it's not just a lot of everyone singing to the choir. And there's a participation fee of $100. The class size we're hoping for is around 12 to 20 people. The senior center, you get above 20 people, and that's a little iffy when you get into working in project teams. Next one, please. So we're going to be, this is focusing on classes and workshops on Saturdays, on reading assignments, on team project participation. The class will be broken up into smaller teams, probably of 4 to 5 people, focusing on a project which I'll talk about in just a minute. Next one. There are going to be 8 sessions, as I mentioned. The first one focuses on leadership. What is leadership? And then the next one on teams. Since they'll all be working in teams, they need to know what makes a team rather than just a group. And since most things happen in team meetings, meeting skills, the third session is on local community characteristics and to some of the sort of issues that are common to all the communities we have here and those that are unique. And that will feed into the following session on change management, where I'll be talking about what does it take to run an effective change management initiative. And at that point, then we'll put up the issues that have been identified, be on a wall, and be able to vote in terms of which ones they're most passionate about in terms of being on a team, and we'll develop some teams that way. The fifth session is on communications and public speaking and media relations and so forth. And then the sixth session is on negotiations. And the final actual class section is on ethics, focusing on the Rotary 4-way test as a good guideline for helping people out, dealing with conflicts of interest and being a courageous leader or follower. And since all teams require leaders and followers, you know, we need to have people who speak up and will prevent the emperor from discovering what sort of new clothes he has. Next one. So the benefits to the participants are that they'll develop the leadership skills focused on what the community issues are and how to be more knowledgeable as a leader in the community, They'll gain greater self-confidence and a network of other people within the community who've been participants in the program, as well as some of the people who will be presenters. And the other thing that we've found out from similar programs is that when you go through a program like this, it helps you become a better leader in other aspects of your life, either at work or, if you're a parent, you're a leader, in all sorts of situations. So, next one. The benefits to the community then, of course, are that we'll have more skillful people working with others in the community, more knowledgeable about the communities, better listeners, hopefully, and better team players, and more knowledgeable decision makers, so that people won't be going just by the seat of their pants, that they'll have some skills for analyzing issues. And people will be more prepared for their leadership roles than they have been. Next. And the benefits to the presenters who get the grand sum of $0 has to be psychic rewards, and it's the satisfaction of making a difference in the community, and the opportunity to connect with people who are future leaders. And plus, when you have to present something in 3 hours, you need to be able to distill what is the really important information to get across in that period of time and do it concisely and persuasively. Next. The benefits to the Rotary is a great community service project. Our theme for last year was building a strong community, but with COVID, there was a lot that we couldn't do in person. We could only do it financially. And this is an opportunity then for being able to do things in person. It's a great branding opportunity for Rotary, and also we're hoping with some of these people to have them interested enough in Rotary that they may join. So how can you help? I'm not asking you for money, but just spread the word. The word of mouth from you is very important. And perhaps provide a panelist for our October 10th meeting to talk about what it's like to be a council member, how the Brown Act affects what you do in council relations, or what it's like to be on a board or commission, and talk then about what you see as being the current issues facing our community here. And then also, we'd like to have one of you provide, or to be a commencement speaker on the 13th of November when the program ends. Next. Okay, how to join the program. Request an application. And actually, I have some little flyers here that I'd be happy to pass out to anyone in the audience who's interested, and to you. Our website has the program on it. That's solvangrotary.com. Contact me at iancjacobson@gmail.com. Complete and return the application and commit to attend and participate. And then when you're accepted, pay a participation fee. And that's sort of, in a nutshell, what the program is about. And I'm happy to answer any and all of your questions.
Do we have any questions of Ian? Sounds good. Now, what was the name of it again? You're calling it?
The Santanez Valley Community Leadership Program.
Okay.
Let me give you a flyer.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian.
You gave me one earlier at the park, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Clark?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to inform you about this program that we're enthused about.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank you
doing
for
this.
being here.
Thanks.
Thank you for presenting it as well.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have one more presentation from People Helping People. Valerie and Maggie, you're up.
Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and distinguished council. It's a pleasure to be here again. I was just here when you did the resolution for Juneteenth, so it's good to be back. This evening, what I wanted to do was to provide you with a brief update and overview of some of the things that are happening at PHP and share some information. It's really been an interesting year, and that's for sure. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th of 2020. And I just wanted to kind of go over some of the impacts that the pandemic has had on our operations. Clearly, it's affected everyone, but I do want to share some information with you. And these numbers are not audited yet, but they're pretty close to what we'll be bringing in for the year. I think all of you know that PHP has been in the community for almost 29 years, and we offer 20 unique programs, all under one roof. But tonight I wanted to talk to you and give you an update on emergency services and our basic needs. And this is the program that takes care of housing supports and food distribution. And I wanted to let you know, and this is just specifically to Solvang residents, not our entire service area. But in housing supports alone, we provided over $48,000 in assistance to 27 households here in Solvang. The food distribution program continues to be in high demand. We are on a daily and weekly basis providing food for those individuals that are still experiencing food insecurity. In the past, we were at the mission every other week, but since the onset of the pandemic, we have been there weekly, and we provide food to approximately 274 families on a weekly basis at the mission. We don't see any signs so far of that decreasing. Even though things are moving forward, people are getting back to work. You know, it's been such a sustained issue with the pandemic that they still have, you know, some room to make up. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is really significant, is our mental wellness program. We provide counseling services here in the Santanez Valley area, and specifically in Solvang, I wanted to show you, we've had like a 42% increase in the demand for counseling services. This is due to the increased stress and anxiety brought about by the pandemic. But just to share with you, at Santanez High School last year, we had 306 therapy sessions. This year, we were at 442. Solvang Elementary last year, 258. This year, 343. We have had such an increase in the request for counseling that we have added an additional intern, and we opened up a wellness center at our service center in Solvang so that now we can see clients at our service center. There have been a lot of changes at PHP, and we've welcomed a number of new staff members. John Crowell just joined us last Wednesday as our new program director, and we have hired Adriana Riaz, who serves as our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Director. Erica Flores has joined us, and she's heading up Communications and Development. And with me tonight, I have Maggie Johnson, who is no stranger to PHP. She has worked in our domestic violence prevention program, and she's also served as a clinician in our mental wellness program. I think most of you know that Mary Conway, after 15 years, has retired, and Maggie has stepped in to fill the role of our youth program director. So I know Maggie wants to ask you or tell you some information about the work that she does, and then we can answer any questions you might have. Maggie?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for having me and Valerie here today. I have big shoes to fill, as you know, Mary Conway, so I will do my best. So as Valerie said, I'm the new youth program director at PHP. And with that, I also get to direct the Sunniness Valley Youth Coalition that also Mary Conway used to direct. For some of you that have not heard about the Sunniness Valley Youth Coalition, it is a group of local volunteers that come together and to promote healthy lifestyles and prevention on substance abuse, especially for our youth in the Valley. So one example that I have of that program is an activity that Mary actually used to do a few years ago, and I had just recently brought it back. We call it the Parents Cafe, which is an opportunity that I get once a week with our Hispanic and Latino community, parents especially, where we get together and we have in the morning for half an hour, not very long, and we come together to discuss some of the issues that they're facing with their teenagers and substance abuse. It's very neat to have a time to come together as parents and just converse and feel comfortable with each other and build a sense of community and just that security that you have, that you are in a safe place and we're helping each other. So that has just started, and I will be doing that weekly with them. So this is one example of some of the ways that we bring these prevention activities to the Valley. So last month or 2 months ago, I had the opportunity to meet with our mayor and Mary Conway, and we concluded that it would be a good idea for me to come today to just explain a little bit of the program, but also to talk, now that school is about to start, to talk on substance prevention, specifically about flavored tobacco, which is one of the drugs that our teens are unfortunately choosing the most. Just to share some numbers with you, according to the Public Health Department, 80% of kids who have used tobacco started with a flavor product. So just to take a closer look at home, which sometimes is more interesting to see what's going on in our community, we have this community report that we get together and we collect data from the California Healthy Kids Survey. If you have not heard about that, it's a survey that we do in the schools, in California schools. It's confidential, and it's administered to students on grades 5, 7, 9, and 11. And this survey enables schools and communities to collect and analyze data that has to do with risk and behaviors, school connectedness, school climate, school violence, and protective factors, and also the use of substances. So with that data, we put it together, and it helps us understand how we can target our community better, especially our youth, and how to help them better. So back to the flavored tobacco, I wanted tonight to just bring awareness of how these industries are targeting our kids with products that are very easy to get hooked on. These flavors that they're coming out with are crazy, like from cotton candy to watermelon. And the crazy thing about these nicotine products is that, for example, one pack of cigarettes that contains 20 cigarettes has 20 milligrams of nicotine. Some of these vape pens or pods have either double or triple the amount of nicotine in just one pen. So you can understand how addicted this can become. As a clinician for PHP in the past doing therapy with some of these kids, I noticed how they turn to these products just to feel better, to pass the time, to feel connected to other kids, to calm their anxiety. So they're using it as a coping mechanism. And my hope, working with the community, especially with youth and their parents, is to help parents and our teens understand that there's other ways to cope. And my hope is that our community can offer this type of activities for them, where they can, the more they're out in the community, the more adults get to know them, and the more eyes on them, the more people to protect them and get to know their name. So that's our dream and our hope. And I know that we can't change everything, but we can do a little bit at a time to keep our future leaders healthy and drug-free. So that is my hope, and that's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of years. So if you have any questions, we're here to answer
Thank
them.
you. Thank you both for your presentation. Is there any questions of the?
Just
Well,
thanks
in
for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you for your continued support, and I just wanted to mention that we are embarking on our next 5-year strategic plan, and we'll be reaching out to you to do some needs assessment here in our community. But thank you again for all your support.
Thank you.
I did have a question, Maggie, just real quick, related to the Youth Coalition.
Yes.
Is the school resource deputy in touch with you because I know that was part of the grant that came about, and is there any stings or operations possibly planned for Solvang to try to alleviate the vaping, the flavored vape pens and all of that type of stuff, at least in our
In the community.
businesses that we have here?
Mm-hmm. One thing that it will be coming up soon is I think it's 2022, the opportunity to ban flavored tobacco in our city. if we could join the city of Guadalupe and Santa Maria, which they have already banned flavored tobacco. And I will be coming back with more details on that as I'm just kind of learning all these new policies. But that is something huge that we could do as a community. And another huge thing that we can do as a community is offer this youth more activities, you know, things that, you know, will get them out of their homes, out of being bored. So that's another thing that we can collaborate together on, and that's something that I know Valerie and I are very passionate about. So we actually have Joe Parker coming to our next Youth Coalition meeting, and he will tell us a little bit more about what he saw at the high school this last year regarding vaping and other issues there. And so we're looking forward to get to hear from him, what he has to say. Mm-hmm.
Good, all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I will get you names of what you were asking for as far as community service stuff too, so.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to get all of this together.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, that's the last of our presentations. And now we go to Madam Clerk, item 1.
Item 1 is public communications, written or verbal. The council welcomes your input. At this time, you may address the council on items not on the agenda and consent agenda. Time limit is 3 minutes.
I do not have any speaker slips up here.
I
That
don't
I'm
have any
aware of.
speaker slips from anyone in person.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to say or speak on any item that is not on the agenda for right now? Seeing none. Is there anyone that's out in Zoom right now that would like to speak on any item that is not on the agenda? Please raise your hand or wave.
If you'd like to
We'll try
speak
to
on,
see you all.
if you'd like to speak on items not on the agenda or consent agenda, please raise your virtual hand or unmute yourself. Seeing no speakers.
All right. All right, we'll now move to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If we can have my slides, please. So we'll start today's discussion, and just to remind you that this is not on the agenda for decision-making today, but this is just a preliminary discussion of preliminary results on the Copenhagen Drive closure survey. So the survey was distributed via email to all of our business license email contacts for anybody licensed with the City of Solving for a business community survey, and also via our utility billing contacts and our general plan update contacts for resident community survey input. We have received a fairly good deal of responses at this point, and I'll walk you through the summaries of those. But we'll continue to have this survey open for us through about the mid-August in order to allow us to send a notification to all utility billing customers and those who may not be reached by us via email, so that they can also have an option to be aware of the survey and have their fit in. So you can also go to our city website at cityofsolving.com, and on the front page under the news flash, we have the survey link available as well. So you can go ahead and fill that out. We do ask that residents fill out the survey as residents and businesses fill out the survey as businesses. And we also ask that businesses and residents as well do provide us their contact information so that we can better analyze the results. That contact and the names of the businesses and individuals will not be distributed publicly, but it will allow us better understanding, especially in the business community, to analyze how different types of businesses think about disclosure. So I'll first, there's 8 questions for each survey. So once again, this is some preliminary results that were collected as of today. And we'll keep running this survey for a little while with this item coming back to the City Council in August for your decision making. Currently, the Copenhagen Drive is closed through the end of October, and we need to know and have direction as to whether that will be reopening or otherwise. So Copenhagen Drive closure survey for the business community. We have 76 responses in total thus far. The first question was, rate the following statement. Overall, I support the Copenhagen Drive closure to vehicular traffic. You will see that we have majority of the responders, or 42% saying that they strongly agree, and another 11% saying that they agree. About 26% said that they disagree, and 10% disagree, and 26 strongly disagree. So the next question was, rate the following statement. I believe the Copenhagen closure has a positive impact on sales and visitor experience in Solvang. You will see that about 40% said that they strongly agree, and about 15% said that they agree. On the opposite side, about 16% strongly disagree, and another 18% disagree. Question number 3. Ideally, the Copenhagen Drive closure should include. And here we had some options. The green that received the most positive response says closure of Copenhagen between both blocks, as it is right now. The next option was closure of Copenhagen from Alisol to the 1st Street. Closure of Copenhagen from 1st Street to the 2nd Street is the yellow, and then no closure. So here you have the option 1, the way it is now at 44%, and then you have no closure at about 35% support rate. With Copenhagen Drive closed, please rate your concern with disabled access. We have 45% saying not at all, and 17% saying a great deal. With Copenhagen Drive closed, please rate your concern with the loss of parking. We have 38% say a great deal, and 22% say not at all. Currently, Copenhagen Drive is scheduled to reopen on October 31, 2021. Please rate your level of agreement with this reopening date. We have in green, Copenhagen Drive should be reopened on or before October 31, is actually rating top at 42. The Copenhagen Drive closure should be extended temporarily 6 to 12 months for further evaluation. That one is at 25%. And we have 32% saying the Copenhagen Drive closure should be made permanent. Currently, Copenhagen Drive is scheduled to, What impact do you believe a walking promenade on Copenhagen Drive would have on foot traffic and sales for your business? We have 31% saying very positive, 35% are neutral, and 14% negative, and then 5% very negative. How supportive are you to move forward with the development of a master plan to permanently close Copenhagen Drive and create a walking promenade? We have 32% very positive, 25% positive, 4% neutral, 17% opposed, and 21% very opposed. Now, residential survey. We have a total of 192 responses to date. And these questions are similar, but slightly different. You have, rate the following statement. Overall, I support the Copenhagen Drive closure to vehicular traffic. Residents are saying at 53.6% strongly agree, 19.7% agree. We have strongly disagree at 13% and about 9% disagree. Rate the following statement. I enjoy the expansion of dine-out options as a result of the Copenhagen closure. 47% strongly agree, 21% agree. On the opposite, 6% strongly disagree, and 10% disagree. Ideally, the Copenhagen Drive closure should include. Once again, same options as we had in the business survey. Majority support both streets or both blocks being closed at 56%. Actually 58%, and the next popular one is no closure at 19%. Rate the following statement. The Copenhagen Drive closure makes significant impact on parking sprawl into residential neighborhoods. Majority said neither agree or disagree. We have 25% agree and 18 disagree, with 9 strongly disagree. If Copenhagen Drive is reopened, parkland sprawl will no longer occur in residential neighborhoods. Here we are tending towards the disagree. So we have 22% strongly disagree, 32 disagree, and 24 neither agree or disagree, with very few actually in agreement with the statement. If Copenhagen Drive is scheduled to reopen on October 31, please rate your level of agreement with this reopening date. We have majority saying the Copenhagen Drive closure should be made permanent at 48%. That's the yellow line. And rate the following statement. I would like to see a permanent closure and walking promenade on Copenhagen Drive. We have strongly agree at 46, and another 20% agree, with 16% strongly disagree and 7% disagree. And then the last question, how supportive are you to move forward with the development of a master plan to permanently close Copenhagen Drive and create a walking promenade? Once again, you see that here we are leaning on the positive, with very supportive of 49% and supportive of 18%. So I think there's already some trends that we are starting to see here, especially in the residential survey, as well as the business survey. Once again, we'll continue to run the survey through about mid-August, give everybody more opportunity and ensure that everyone has received a message that the survey is open and available. And I'm also contacting specifically the businesses on the 2 blocks of the closed Copenhagen to receive their separate feedback. With that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Otherwise, I have a couple more slides to share with you. So the next, mark your calendars, and we'll be reaching out to the community to let them know that this is happening. We are now approaching August 8th, and the City Council had delayed the usual state of the city in order for us to have more opportunity to reopen from COVID-19. So together with the Chamber of Commerce, we'll be working on the State of the City presentation, which is scheduled for August 28th in the morning between 9 and 11 a.m. at the Veterans Memorial Hall. Everybody is welcome to join. It's open to the public, and the Chamber will also be working with the business community. So please join the City Council at the State of the City 2021, and more information will be distributed to the community of Solvang. Now, the general plan update continues to move forward. We have had some great success or great movement from the GPAC. They were very efficient at creating the vision and guiding principles in a draft form, which will be presented to the Planning Commission and City Council at a joint session planned for August 23rd. The DRC has made their comments to the draft, and that's going back to GPAC. And when they review it next week, there will be information posted for the community to be able to review that ahead of time. The vision and guiding principle is a very important step in the process, as it does set the tone of the conversation going forward and what the policies will be focusing on and the priorities. So the vision and the guiding principles is a product of the first 2 phases, which was the first 2 workshops where we held a workshop that was virtual here to kick off the project, and also one in person at the Veterans Hall, where members of the community could come in and talk about what are the strengths, what would they like to see in the future, what are the existing conditions, and some of the challenges. So all of that input is available on plansolving.com, and it was incorporated and presented to the GPAC, who are 15 individuals representing the City of Solvang community. And that's what has been the result is the vision and guiding principle draft that will be coming to the City Council and Planning Commission on August 23rd. So we definitely welcome the community's participation on that, and we'll also be sending out some correspondence to make sure that the community is aware of this joint session. And then the next step in the general plan after that will be the alternative choices. There will be another community workshop, which tends to be the more robust conversation. And that will be the conversation which is planned for about the month of November, where the community will have an opportunity to review where we are today and what are the alternative choices in getting from where we are today towards the vision and guiding principles and what Solvang wants to be in 20 years from now. With that, I move on to the advanced calendar. We will have on August 9th the first hearing, assuming that the contract is approved, of the elections by district. That is something that's required by law. We'll also have the general fund fees update, so we're much looking forward to that to help us with our finances and fully recover our costs of doing business. We'll also have the Caltrans Highway 246 bridge replacement and widening item for you to consider. Parking improvements recommendations based on our previous discussion, and then we'll likely be also coming forth with some recommendations for further recommendations on the drought conditions. Then on August 23rd, you will have the joint meeting, which I just talked about with the general plan. So that will be council and the plan commission will be joining together to discuss and approve the vision and guiding principles. There will be a second hearing on elections by district. We'll be coming back to you with the wastewater treatment plan phase 3 option to seek your policy direction, whether you would like us to pursue recycled water component. That will be the meeting where we'll bring to you the results and recommendations regarding the Copenhagen Drive closure, and we'll seek your policy direction prior to the October 31 currently scheduled reopening date. And we'll also have our targeting to have the Tourism Advisory Committee member appointment, if that is approved as well, to be seated and appointed on August 23rd so that they can work on the RFP and all marketing needs in the months of September. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions of the city manager report by anyone? Right. I guess that's good. Right. Moving on to council comments. Is there anyone that has any meetings or any comments that they'd like to make? Councilmember Infante.
Reports on 2 meetings that I've been attending over the past couple of weeks. One was the SBCAG sub-regional meeting for the North County. They've been looking at regional transportation connections. One of the issues is that they want, well, there's several things that they have on the agenda. One of them is a seamless fare transfer. So if you wanted to get on a bus and get ultimately to a train, you pay for one fare and it transfers through all of the different transportation modes that you would go for. They're looking at new transfer connections for long distance trips and additional trips. The Clean Air Express right now runs, it's a peak hour directional service to Santa Barbara and Goleta from around here, but it's only peak hour. There is accumulated funding for North County transit projects of over $600,000, part of which will go to the Santanez Valley Transit operation. There was also a meeting of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency Eastern Management Area. There was a presentation of the projects that will take place if the minimum thresholds are hit. So this was the first time we started to hear about if we, really get in trouble, what happens. There is also a draft groundwater sustainability plan that will be available for public comment around between August 28th and October 13th. This is ultimately going to be presented at the end of the year, will be completed at the end of the year and presented in January to the state. Those of us that get involved in the water need to understand some of this, because this is going to be a real issue if the drought continues. That's all my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments?
I'd just like to take a few moments to to notify Solvang and share my grief in the passing of Fred Koval. Fred is one of the first people that talked me into running. I never met him before until he, along with several other people, asked me to run and to serve. And Fred has served and skewered, I think, most everyone in this town over his term. I don't think anybody has an ambiguous position about their opinion of Fred. You either liked him or you didn't like him, because Fred was one of probably the most intelligent man I have ever met. He put a man on the moon. He was a brilliant, very well-educated man. I think maybe he never really did talk about it that much, but I think he left his home in the same decor as when the man first walked on the moon, if you've ever been to Fred's house. My office is always open to anybody, and Fred would stop by once a week, and I would put an end to it and say, Fred, I can only talk to you after 5 p.m. And I have boxes and boxes and boxes in my garage of everything you'd ever want to know about water in the Santanez Valley. And if you ever want to know about water, Fred was the guy. And whether you liked him or not, he certainly had an opinion, and I think he had all the residents' interests at heart. He forced me to drive through town several times with him, and he would point a building that had 8 units and 1 water meter, and he said we needed to fix that. And then when I would get home from meetings, I would look at my phone, there would be a text from Fred telling me what stupid thing I said for the evening or what I needed to do differently. But he certainly had his opinions, and love him or hate him, Fred was just a wonderful, decent man, and he adored his wife and he loved his children, and that's what I admire the most about him, and I'm going to miss him very, very much. Thank you.
I also wanted to just bring up Fred, and I know that the water issue, he was the smartest guy I knew about water. He would talk your ear off about water, even though I was a deputy in law enforcement, and it didn't matter. He loved that subject, and as Councilmember Clark iterated it, he had a great love for this city, and he will be missed. I did have some other updates. I attended a SBCAG meeting, and that was the final public hearing for the RENA numbers that were out there. Looks like the county as a whole will have to supply over the next 8 years or so 24,856 units. Fortunately, Solvang is only responsible for 191, so that's still a lot of number for us, but that's what's coming up. I did have, and I'll send it to Zena, I think, just an update on one of the questions that came up at the meeting was, it's always a percentage based on very low, moderate, or above moderate, and Supervisor or Director Nelson asked if it could be broken out to numbers. So there's actually income numbers that are related to that now, as opposed to just a percentage. So I wanted to give that to everyone so that they would have that. Maybe we could post that in our housing element or something. What the numbers do not have to be completed. All of this whole study as part of the housing element does not need to be completed until February of 2023. So that's quite a bit of time still to be able to update the RENA numbers for the county as a whole. There was a lot of discussion about broadband and what that could bring to our communities, especially here in the semi-rural, a little bit of Solvang, Buellton, the Santanez Valley, Ballard, some of the areas where internet capabilities and being able to have that available as a 5G, that is being discussed right now as an infrastructure for the entire county. But we do have a little committee that's meeting together, of which Mayor Janelle Osborne and the City of Goleta Public Works Director, I believe, is Dan Fitzgibbons. They were appointed to be part of that, and it's part of the committee that will be discussing that at the state level. So those are a couple of key appointees that SBCAG did at the meeting. One of the items that's a study, it's called the Gaviota Wildlife Study. It's going to be focusing from Gaviota Pass to Mariposa Reina, This was an update from Caltrans, mainly because that's the area where more wildlife are hit and killed in on Highway 101. So that is a study that's being authored and hoping to try to figure out a way that maybe they can have some type of animal bypass or a way to get from one side to the other in that area. And then as far as the Amtrak, Director Hart intimated that Amtrak has taken out 25% of their units that were available. This is California-wide due to maintenance issues. So that was kind of a big loss of being able to move California, so to speak. That's what I had for SB CAG. I just got the email this morning that the Clean Air Express and Santa Barbara MTD buses, as of today, are going to be also now going to the innovative fare payment system, and it's part of the California Integrated Travel Project initiative of the California State Transportation Agency and the California DOT, and it's, I'm looking where it's at, it's where you kind of just contactless, I guess that's the term, just a tap to ride, so you can just go without having to even go online, and you can tap your card, your debit card, and it'll pay for your trips back and forth through everywhere, all of the transportation that we have, mass transportation wise. So that's it for SB CAG. As far as this week, again, for the movies, or the music, music in the park, Wednesdays, every Wednesday from 5 to 8. This Wednesday will be Ghost Monster, and the following Wednesday will be the Mother Corn Chuckers on August 4th. So those are ones coming up next. And trust that everyone is enjoying all of that. I know I certainly enjoy the live music. And then again with the food bank, as far as July 13th, which is week 69, it's hard to believe they've still done this without stopping. 301 households total, 1,197 individuals were served, and for the first time it was 100 households. On July 20, which is week 70, that was last week, 283 households for a total of 1,158 individuals. First time recipients was 65. Tomorrow is the first Tuesday that they are going to have off, and they're going to begin again August 3rd, so that's good on them to be able to kind of take a break. And thank you for people helping people to continuing theirs going out on Thursdays. So that's again Tuesdays from 5 to 7. I believe that is all I have for comments for right now. Let's see if I can. Ooh, I lost my agenda. All right. We'll now move to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please read the items on the consent agenda?
The consent agenda is designed for routine administrative city matters and is approved by roll call vote with one motions. These items are discussed only at the request of council members. Members of the public were afforded an opportunity to speak on consent agenda items during the public communication portion of the agenda. The consent agenda for tonight is approval of agenda as presented, approval of minutes of regular city council meeting on July 12, 2021, received Sheriff's Department activity report for months of June 2021, visit SYW quarterly report, approve annual contract with Santa Barbara County Animal Services for the current fiscal year 2021-22, receive 2021 updated Public Works Utilities Standards details, Water System Risk and Resiliency Assessment Report, Sales and Use Tax Contract Novation Resolution, approve budget amendment in the amount of $30,000 for demographic services to perform necessary work to transition to election by district by 2022 election, And second reading of the ordinance establishing the membership, terms of office, duties, and organization of the Tourism Advisory Committee.
Are there any comments on the consent agenda and any items that
Yes.
Member Infante?
I'd like to pull item J, the second reading of the Tourism Advisory Committee ordinance.
Right, is there any other items that need to be pulled? I had just a couple questions related to the, it's on the agenda, it's page 28, where it's the contract for animal control services. And wanted to just clarify the designated representative, bullet point 1, on page 28. Did we get?
Do you want to pull that, or you want to?
No, I just had a question just to make sure that we get the correct name there for the designated representative.
Yes, I can see what you're referring to. It's designated representative of the county, so I would like to correct that to Angela Yates, who would be the Director of Animal
Okay.
Services for the County of Santa Barbara.
All right.
So if we can approve it with that correction.
And do we need to add on page 29 the county that where it's got the enter name, business, all of that? And do
That-
we need to be specific in the location on the compensation of the county? Item number 5 in Lompoc, or
It says
where it
location.
says in location.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we get that.
Oh, in Solvang, yes, we can correct that as well.
Okay.
The amount of the contract is correct, 47,200.
Okay. And then,
But it needs to identify the location as Solvang.
It would be location Solvang.
on page, I'm only asking questions on this, is on page 35, or excuse me, let's start with page 34, the dead animal disposal. In the definitions, the full service request, it's talking, it says disposing of all dead animals brought to the county animal shelter by city staff or a resident of the city. And then going further down, in the sheltering services as well as the field services, it says that they will respond to calls for service to pick up dead animals if needed. And I just wanted to clarify, because it seems that sometimes it ends up being a sheriff's deputy that ends up out there trying to move an animal. And I just wanted to let the citizens know that that is part of the contract for animal control, and that we shouldn't be staff and or residents out there trying to pick up, let's just say a deer or something like that, and taking it over there. We should just need to call animal control. Just wanted to get that clarified, because it says it's one thing on page 34, and on 35 it says something a little bit different. It says that they would only do it if we as a staff or a resident take it there. And this is kind of saying that we don't have to have that.
I would say if we're gonna have further comment, we should pull this from the consent
Pull it.
agenda. Yeah, so
Okay.
now we're getting past just technical
All
issues
right.
and a discussion item.
All right, whatever item this is, I can't think of it.
Pool item E.
E, pull item E. So E and yours,
J.
Chair J. I can take a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion that we approve a consent agenda, sans item E and J.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Marona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
I know on mine, I would like to, maybe we could bring it back to another one and just get the clarifications on there.
I would, if
Do we need to
city
do that?
attorney can help us out here, but this is a contract for the current year. I would prefer that we move it forward if there is a specific language that you prefer, so it's clear that it's the scope of work on page 35. You could approve it in concept And we'll make sure to address the
Okay.
language on 34 with the county.
Okay,
Good point.
I'd be fine with that. Because I know we're already behind the 8 ball on this one as
Right.
it is anyway,
Yeah.
so.
And this was a template provided by the county, but we can definitely make that clarification for them.
Yeah, okay. And then,
Item J, this was the second reading of the ordinance establishing the membership, terms of office, duties, and organization of the Tourism Advisory Council. So on page 236, it's a big agenda.
yes.
It says, the TAC, Tourism Advisory Council, members must be Solvang residents unless the city council determines an individual is not a resident is needed for a particular expertise or background. Okay, 2 parts to this that bother me. If we had another city council in the future that just decided they needed a PETA member from Philadelphia to be on the TAC, they could do that. I don't like that. I'd like to suggest that this be changed, which means we're gonna have to redo this and bring it back again next council meeting, I recognize. But that we change this to say at least Santanez Valley residents or business owners be a member of this committee.
Well, that was implied, so it's a nomenclature
It is,
issue?
it's
Okay.
not said, it says basically you gotta be a Solvang resident. So let's take Max Hamburg. He owns the shoe store, he owns a windmill, but he doesn't live within the city limits, if I'm not mistaken. So he isn't even legitimately, I don't like that. It's not, so we did a better job with the DRC than we're doing with this Tourism Advisory Committee, and I think we should change this to allow for those in the Santanez Valley.
Because it was discussed.
It was,
Yeah.
but it wasn't put out that way. And the other thing that bothers me in this document is in the, on page 240, is the conflict of interest. So here it says the Tourism Advisory Committee members shall act in accordance with the Political Reform Act. I don't know the Political Reform Act that well, but basically it says the members shall not do anything which benefits them. Okay, so we have a business member who's on the tourism board who can't do anything that benefits his or her business. That seems illogical to me. I think we need to either clarify the language of what a conflict of interest is, or just get rid of that altogether. Because you can't have a business owner suggesting a tourism idea that's gonna help his business that isn't a conflict, as I see it. I would look to our attorney for that.
This is a Brown Act.
This is a Brown Act committee as
Yeah.
proposed, yes.
So the Political Reform Act and Fair Political Practices Commission's regulations, it's not just like any benefit. I mean, you all are governed by those same rules, right? And you're able to make decisions about the city that do positively or negatively impact yourselves and any businesses that you own. But it has to be a tighter connection than that. So we can certainly clarify it, but I think there is room to have this here and still have people serve on the committee. But it's good to have this type of language in because it does prevent the obvious thing where, let's say, there's a particular programmer coming up that's before the committee that would be that person's specific business, like Solvang's going to do a program that benefits business Y, and that person who owns business Y is on the committee. Like, they would have to abstain from that, right? So I think having this in is a good idea, but we can certainly clarify the scope a little bit.
I would think we'd need to, I mean, if I own a restaurant and I've got tourism that's called Restaurant Week, am I in violation of a conflict of interest?
I'm not gonna answer specifically because it's very factually intensive, but generally if something is affecting everyone the same, there's not gonna be
It's not
the
considered
same
a
level of
conflict
conflict of interest. Now, if their specific restaurant is gonna be up for a specific benefit, that might be different, right?
I feel like that's the idea that we're trying to get, which is why we want someone that's in the business
I know.
that's there, and that's kind of the purpose of what we're trying to get is what's gonna be beneficial, you know, if it's for one restaurant, it's gonna be for all of the restaurants. If it's for the wine selling industry part of it, it's gonna be for that person. And then the other point that you brought up though, is that maybe the person that you're suggesting, one person might want a PETA person, it still says that it needs to be that anybody more than your appointed person, it has to be by a majority vote. So you may select that.
Our last city council did a lot by majority vote that I wouldn't agree with.
Well,
I rest my case. I'm not gonna be hard over on it. I'll let everybody on the council say it's good enough the way it is.
I lost that page. What was that page?
You're gonna do this
240?
to me, aren't you? 240?
240?
240.
I'm on two different machines on two different
On the
things.
conflict of interest.
Yeah, 240,
Yeah.
yeah, 240C, item C. Oh, that's conflict of interest, sorry. Is that the one you were referring to, or the other?
No, the other one on the actual.
Yeah, that was up on 237, I think.
In the actual ordinance.
236.
236.
Bottom of the page. It says the last sentence, TAC members must be Solvang residents unless the city council determines an individual who is not a resident needed to be a particular expertise or background.
That kind of answers it right there, the
Yeah,
last
I
section.
think that gives us a little bit of leeway
Unless.
to do what you're suggesting.
But then
It doesn't
again, you're
have to
saying
be
that's
that
why you brought
person.
in the Philadelphia connection, because it doesn't say where
Yeah.
the
don't give us
board is.
anything.
Fine, let's just change that to Santanez Valley.
I really would like that to say Santanez Valley, not just Solvang, because we have a lot of business owners here that are in the valley.
Or just say in the realm of visit SYV, because that's got Los Alamos in it too.
Can we do that legally?
Yes.
That way it encompasses all the boats that get floated when the economy does well.
It's actually not a bad idea. If that's legally acceptable, then yeah.
So is that the majority consensus?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Visit SYV, and then also I heard Councilmember Infante say not just resident, but or a business owner. Do we want to add that into the language?
I don't think we need to if we say the whole visit SYV Valley. That pretty much is gonna get all of our business owners, I believe.
Okay.
Unless it's a guy from Las Vegas that's doing
Do we need to
water
be
well.
as specific as that, or because that's kind of implied as opposed to actually saying it?
Or you say the Santanez Valley and Los Alamos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting the business owners is sort of implied by the type of experience that you're looking
Right.
for.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Okay.
so maybe, can I have a motion?
I will move that we edit the requirements for membership of the Tourist Advisory Committee to be those that live and operate in the Santanez Valley and Los Alamos.
And we'll bring that back for a second reading at the future meeting. There may be a need to schedule a special session with you on labor negotiations, so potentially I think this could be an item that we could address before the next regular meeting, so we can advertise for the positions.
Right, because I know we were trying to get,
Yeah, and I apologize that I didn't bring this up at
way
the
to
first
go,
reading. Somehow it
Councilmember Infante.
hit me
So,
between the eyes.
There
like
was
this.
a
There was a
motion. Is there a second?
We have a second, I'll second.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Infante?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Marona?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
Mayor Urick?
Yes.
That passes 5-0, and then that was item J, and if you could just do a motion to address item E, and I believe you wanted
Yeah,
to
just if
fix
we could
bullet points 1,
fix some of the
5.
bullet points that are missing, that need some grammatical, I guess, corrections, but then just we can accept it.
So if there's a
Sure.
motion to accept.
Is there a motion to accept? I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Infante?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Marona?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
Mayor Urick?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right, moving on to regular business items. Madam Clerk, would you read the title, item number 5.
Item number 5 is a Santanez Valley Therapeutic Writing Program grant application. So this was brought to you at the request of City Council. Staff reached out to the Santanez Valley Therapeutic Writing Program to inquire whether they needed the city funds and grant funds, and they did submit an application which is attached in your council packet. The item starts on page 242. The request is for a total of $5,000. The City Council had adopted a grant funding policy back in January of 2021, and that policy was adopted as a human services grant funding policy with focus on senior services as well. We've reviewed the application. This application is in line with the human services focus, and they also have a senior component. So it's up to council's discretion whether you would like to grant this application. I believe we have a representative here for a brief presentation.
Yes, please.
Thank you guys very much. I also want to thank you. You guys have funded our Solving School Special Education class for the past decade. They'll be returning to us next month. I've got some new funding pending to bring them back. And we are the only, or rather Solving School is the only school in the Santa Barbara County that has a weekly therapeutic writing program, thanks to you guys. So thank you for that. And Ellen over at the Solving Senior Center reached out to me a couple of months ago and asked if we could start a senior class. So we are putting that together, which your funds, if you decide to grant us this, will be used for. We have an electric lift to help people get on and off the horse. We also have volunteers to help them if they have balance issues, and then we have certified staff to instruct them. Therapeutic writing is particularly beneficial for people with autism, Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, MS, and PTSD. We usually have at least one veteran with us, and Monty Roberts has a wonderful veterans program, and they send us any of their local clientele. And I'm working on Valerie at People Helping People to send me some local children as well. But we have a beautiful program, and I'm so thankful for your help in making our community better. We have a weekly program with Hidden Wings, which just returned this week. United Cerebral Palsy comes down from Santa Maria every week. They returned last month. We have almost all of our students back from our brief COVID shutdown. We have 3 that are waiting to come back, and a long list of new students waiting to come. And last week, we were just accepted to send an instructor to Connected Horse. It's a program that was developed by UC Davis, and it's a curriculum for people with dementia and their caregivers to have really a bonding experience shared over some unmounted horse activities. So I just am so grateful for your support. Our slogan is Walk, Trot, Heal, and we get to be a part of the joy of horses and the healing of horses. Their walking motion stimulates the spinal cord and language center of the rider's brain, and we get to see first words. We get to see our students graduate on to not walking, or to be able to walk from a wheelchair, standing, and to be able to ride without volunteers. And over this past year, bringing our students back after a brief closure has just been all the more heartwarming. And so thank you so much for all of your past support, and I hope that you'll support us with our next partnership with the Solving Senior Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind stating your name?
Oh, sorry.
Contact person and information, and the website that people can, just so everybody else can hear it.
Yes, hi, I'm Robin Saratslev. I live on Laurel in Solving, and I'm the contact person there. I'm the executive director. And our website is syvtherapeuticwriting.org. And we also have a pretty active Facebook page, SYV Therapeutic Writing, where you can find some wonderful and heartwarming videos. And we are always in need of volunteers, so if anyone has some free time, we could definitely use a helping hand. But I hope that you guys will check out some pictures, check out our videos. It is just sure to bring a smile to your face. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. Are there any questions of the staff report or of Robin?
I do have a question. I haven't had the chance to visit your facilities. I would love to do that sometime, so I will. Where do the horses that are part of your program come from?
Oh, thank you. We would love to have you anytime. We have almost all donated horses, and we have a free lease at the Santanez Valley Equestrian Association down on Refugio Road. We have 2 horses that are currently leased. And so right now we have 10 horses. We are able to get 1 more horse to help serve our waiting list, which we are very grateful for. And our veterinarian, Dr. Ben Bramson, who's a local veterinarian here, kind of keeps us with a steady stream of horses. And on average, most therapeutic riding programs were internationally accredited. That keeps the horses for about 2 or 3 years. Our horses' average tenure with us is a decade. We take excellent care of them. They get platinum performance, apple cider vinegar, grass hay, vacations. They live a pretty wonderful life because they give so much to our students.
And what's their, I'm just wondering what happens if a horse is no longer able to, say, work in the program? What happens to them?
Well, thankfully, we have a moderately sized retirement fund for our horses, and we have a lot of wonderful supporters in the community that have been willing to take a horse that's ready to retire, including like Lee Carr on 154, and I've had a couple others, the McEnroes out in Buellton, that are happy to take our horses when it's time for their next step. But so far, we keep them a long time. Most of our horses are in their 20s. We have 2 that are 29, and they are still happy to work. We talk to Dr. Bramson on a regular basis. Obviously, he's out there all the time, making sure that they are in tip-top shape and that they should be working, that we're not working them too hard. And then we also have about 100 guidelines that we follow from what's called PATH International, our governing organization, and that includes how many hours a day they can work, and we're always at least half of that, if not less.
Yeah, thank you. It is a concern of mine that horses, after what happens to them after their useful life or their working life. So I'm happy to hear that you guys have some funding available for their retirement, or that there's an effort to place them in our community. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
you. They give us so much, we need to give it back to
Yes,
them.
yes, absolutely.
As I know you understand. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I asked for this vote because during the pandemic, everything was pretty well shut down as far as funding, with the exception of efforts for seniors. And I thought that the Therapeutic Riding Center was overlooked because they do have a senior program. They're working with the Solvang Senior Center now. I have to admit that I have a bias here. I donated my horse to them, and Bella's still out there working and being a good girl of hope.
Fair.
And so I think it falls within the purview of what was originally intended, and I'd ask that you keep that in mind when the vote comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now go to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address any questions or anything on this particular item? And seeing none, is there anyone out in Zoom that would like to address any items on this or have questions? Seeing none, bring it back for final comments and a motion.
I'll move that we accept it. We give them the money, whatever you're going to call that. Grant the donation, how's that?
I'll second.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Morano,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 6, Madam Clerk.
Okay, item number 6 is receive a report regarding Fjord bypass extension, considerations included in the existing general plan circulation element and capital improvement program, and an update on the current comprehensive general plan. To start the presentation, I'd like to give a little bit of background as to where we have been on this subject, but I also want to upfront from the beginning say that the city staff does not have any direction from city council to be actively working on Fjord bypass or Fjord extension. It is something that, it is a concept that has come up through the years and has existed within different plans. And therefore, it still is within some of the city plans, but it is definitely not something that we are currently engaged and working on. In fact, and on the alternate or the opposite, we are currently working on a comprehensive general plan update because we do recognize that many of our elements of the general plan right now are outdated and need to be updated based on current conditions, where we are, and what would work best in a comprehensive manner for the city of Solvang as a whole, as the entire community, as we look forward about 20 years forward. So this item is placed on the agenda because of some of the residents' comments and requests and questions about this Fjord bypass, especially being mentioned in the capital improvement program. So per the council request, this item is today on the agenda. It is informational item for you. You don't have to take any action. However, you do have the discretion to provide staff with any alternate policy direction. The various conceptual proposals for a bypass go back to 1960s. In your packet, you have a document from 1990, which is a county document, the State Route 246 Corridor Study, which identifies the Fjord bypass as a potential project. But if you read the report, there is actually quite a few other fairly substantial projects that are mentioned in that report. So this was just one of the many alternatives that was mentioned there. The 2008 Solvang General Plan circulation element specifically does include a Fjord extension, which at the time, and that was an update from prior circulation element from 1991. So in 2008, which still is current circulation element for our general plan, but which is being updated right now, included, instead of a bypass, a Fjord extension. So that limited the extension going only to the LSL road. From reviewing the plan documents, we see that some of the concern with that was that the county was not going to support extension all the way to Alamo Pintado, and there were also environmental concerns and the concerns that it would be visible from the mission and would be within that agricultural area. So the piece that made it a bypass going all the way to Alamo Pintado was dropped and was stopped at the Alasa Road, but it still is included. However, it is worth mentioning that it's included as a proposed plan. So there's something that basically this circulation element says we should work on, and we'll need to work on it with the county and Caltrans. Based on our capital improvement program follows the general plan, so anything that has to do with capital improvement program improvements follows that plan, and therefore for years there's been a project always in the outer years, and the outer year slides every year we bring the capital improvement program forward, which tells you that we are not actively working on moving this project forward into the outer years. So in outer years, we do have in the capital improvement program this mention of such a project. However, from staff's perspective, at this point, it wouldn't make any practical difference in terms of whether it's included there or not. So once again, bringing us to the focus of where we are and where we will need community input is the fact that we are updating the general plan comprehensively. All of the elements will be updated, including the circulation element. We are certainly going through a process that involves not just one community, but or specific subdivision of Solving, but we include in the entire community in this conversation. And you've seen this chart before. So where we are today is still working on the existing conditions and trends. Like I mentioned before, there will be a vision and guiding principles coming up, which will be an important document guiding us in the rest of this process. There will be another workshop 3, which will allow the opportunity for everybody in the city of Solving to comment on alternative choices, essentially which projects should be included in these elements. And that would include discussions such as how do you attract or how do you address the traffic patterns. So with that, the general comment is that we are not working on a Fjord bypass as staff. We don't have that direction. We are working on a general plan update, and we're definitely looking for community input as we go forward with this process. That concludes my report.
Charlie, may I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Because I live on the cul-de-sacs off of Fjord, however, we're not voting on this tonight, do I need to recuse myself from this?
No, I think this is general discussion, there's no action.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for council. From a legal perspective, is there any issue with removing the Fjord extension from the general plan update?
So, no, that would be within your discretion, but from a practical perspective, doing that separately when we're already in a process of updating the general plan might be confusing, but you have discretion to amend the general plan.
Thank you.
I think related to that same question that I had is if it was removed from the general plan, the last or the eastern portion of it, when this was thought about back in the 60s and the 90s, that was removed from the comprehensive plan by vote of the people. And is that something, I just wanted to clarify, is that if it was down the road going to get removed, does it need to go to a vote, or can it just be done with what we know right now? Yeah, with council.
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Thank you.
That was one of my concerns too, is that can we get in trouble with Caltrans or whoever just by removing it? Even though nobody wants it, it was proposed before the golf course was even there, because there were plans for it to go further.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. But do we need to keep things like that in plans to show Caltrans that we have a backup in case A happens, then we can do B?
I would think the answer to that would be no, because the circulation study says it's useless.
Okay.
It would not be a circumvention that would help the traffic on a state highway, and Caltrans doesn't care about Fjord Road personally.
Got it.
So I think the answer to that would be no. I would have to go to a higher authority, but why would Caltrans care either way?
Just because they want to see cities planning on growth and accommodating and et cetera. So I'm just trying to cover some bases.
But the circulation study, I think, covered that pretty well.
Okay.
I don't know if it would actually be Caltrans either. It would probably be SB-CAG
It's
as a whole.
Yeah.
They're working on a bike lane.
But yeah,
Well, that's.
but I mean,
another story.
it would come down to, I think it was part of the circulation element that SB-CAG had
Okay.
done, and that was what was proposed.
Just
and carried forward.
just a clarification that what is included in the solving circulation element, which is the portion that you have discretion over, is just the Fjord extension, which goes to Alisal Road. It's not going to Alamo Pintado.
Right,
Yeah.
because the vote took off
Correct.
the Elverhoy extension as well as the Alisal Road extension on the east side of Alisal.
And even more so, it is included as a proposed plan, so it's included as in work with SB-CAG proposed the plan in Caltrans. It's not even fully within element. It's
Well,
future.
I've never favor to bypass because that's what they do. They just pass you by. And, you know, the people that drive through our city, they see places they want to stop, and they see the park or everything else. And I want people going from east to west or west to east to see who we are and what we are.
Especially
but,
at 2 miles
but another
an
thing
hour.
that concerns me though is if this were to be removed, does this incentivize other elements or other issues to also try and remove elements from the general plan update?
My recommendation, that is why I mentioned the process and the entire community of solving feedback, is that, yes, I think there is some precedent setting here that we are not at the point right now where this overall benefit of the city of Solving is being made. That's why we have the general plan update. This is one specific issue kind of coming ahead of the process. So you would definitely be setting some precedent for other potential issues to not go through the process.
One of the things about this one is it has to go through private property, and they won't grant us access. So it's never going to happen. One,
The city has an easement
not through the gravel yard.
potential.
That's what it would take to get back up to 246, and they don't want us to give us rights. So it's not going to happen. And we'll ask the city engineer, but you know that's you are. Matt, please help us.
Good evening, Mayor Jurgen, council members, Matt Vanderlund, and your Public Works Director and Utilities Director. Just a couple quick comments. The last conversation that I had was with the representatives of the Peterson family who own the Buell Flat property was several years ago. But at that time, they were interested in redeveloping their property at some point in the future. And they'd have to have some type of road going from Highway 246 into whatever redevelopment they did. So the idea was that the Fjord extension could connect up with some road coming off Highway 246 that goes into their redevelopment. So they're in the county. The land, I believe, is zoned some type of industrial zoning, and so I'm not sure what plans they might have for redevelopment, if it involves any residential or just commercial and light industrial or something, but anyway, so that was the idea. I've not heard that they wouldn't be interested in talking to the city, but I don't think it's ever progressed that far along. The other thing I was going to mention is our planning consultants working on the general plan update. They have a sub-consultant that's a traffic engineer that's going to be working on the circulation element. So just my suggestion would be to wait till you get a report from them and let the process come to fruition and let it go through the process, hear what the traffic engineer has to say, get all the community input, and then make a decision on what projects you do or don't want included in that circulation element as part of the general plan update. Because they are going to be looking at all that, and then they can bring all that information to you, and you can make the most well-informed decisions. So.
Matt, is that something that's happening fairly quickly? Well, that's not going to be part of the joint meeting that we have in August. That wouldn't be ready for that, right?
No, it'll be a few months down the road. Yeah.
It's so what you have in August is a big picture vision and guiding principle. That's basically your long-term vision, policy, direction. The more specific and technical review will happen in phases 3 and 4. So phase 3 is the community engagement to really discuss the options of here we are today. This is the vision 20 years from now. These are the issues we want to address. What are some of those alternatives? Then, based on that feedback, the technical folks, which we have a lot of them, including the traffic engineer, as subcontracts to our already specializing in general plan updates contractor will look at all the alternatives and will provide us with different solutions from that perspective. But the community feedback will actually come first. And as part of that process, what we are doing right now internally as staff with our consultant is looking at the existing general plan elements, which is a very detailed, long process, and looking at every element and what was included and what still makes sense, what worked, what didn't go forward, and why not. So that's the general plan audit process that we're engaged in right now, which will be completed before the alternative choices discussion, in which case we'll have an opportunity for the public to understand, for example, why did the Fjord extension not go forward so far.
Okay. So I think in conclusion, we're just here listening and hoping that all of you are understanding it's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get information, and we still appreciate all of the emails, all the correspondence that you guys have sent to us. And would like to reiterate, though, that make sure you still say that in the plansolving.com, so that I know that a number of folks that are still out there, I don't want to mention any names, but most of you all know who you are, that all of this is still a process, and that was part of the reason why we wanted to bring it up today, is to try to alleviate the fears that everyone has of what's going forward and what's not. This is not us that's trying to initiate anything new. This is stuff that's been in the books before a lot of you actually even purchase your homes down there along that area. So it was mainly to try to be as transparent as we can be. And I apologize that I haven't been responding to a lot of the emails. I fear more about Brown Act than anybody, and I know that a lot of people have been responding, so I chose not to, and I chose to try to say it tonight that that's really why I have not responded to individuals with the emails related to this, because I know everyone here has been receiving it, and we're not really allowed to be able to discuss all that stuff. So thank you all for your comments. I noted that there was extra stuff that was added, and I know we'll bring it to public comment, but that was just one of the final comments that I wanted to mention before I take it out to. Is there anyone else that would like to mention
just
anything?
one more clarification. I got it, like most of you got all the emails. And what disturbed me was that a lot of people, for whatever reason, were under the impression that we're approving a bypass now. And that is just not the case. And like I say, I can't speak for the others. I wouldn't support it anyway, but it's some time down the road, and I'm not sure it will even last through the circulation study. But just know this is not something that's being done.
So any more final comments here before I take it? Mayor Pro Tem Morano?
Yeah, I will just thank everybody for their input. I will echo Charlie. It is hard to answer to every single one of those emails, but we do read them all, and that's why this is in the agenda tonight, because we do want to address the concern and really get everybody on the same page. I will point out that periodically the capital improvement program does come up for review, and that is a great way to see what the city is actively working on, how much it is going to cost, what the timeline is. So I would encourage everybody to check it out and see what plans the city has and we are actively working on, and what is coming up. And like it's been already said, it's not part of our capital improvement program. This is not something that the city is considering. It's just on the books because at some point it seemed to be a good idea, and maybe this is something that we need to review in our general plan as part of the process. But that's a great resource for the community to see what's actually happening here in town.
Councilmember Clark.
And somehow this went from just being on the planning commissioner's agenda in basically wording only to taking on a life of its own, to that we were gonna start grading and putting in rest stops and gas stations on Fjord all within 3 months. And it really took me by surprise, and I live down there, and I got the flyers on my front door, and I heard the neighbors talking about it, and I know for Brown Act violations, we can't discuss it as a council. I'm like, who wants this? If the majority of the residents wanted it, even if I live down there and we're gonna go to district elections and you're gonna have that person representing those people on Fjord that are affected by it, that's why in a town of 5,000 people, I think district elections are silly, because whether the person that lives down there likes it or not, he wants to get reelected, and he represents 48 people out of a city of 5,000, but that's what that town, that's what those people want. So he only represents them, not the entire city of Solvang. And if the majority of residents in the city of Solvang wanted it,
Councilmember Clark, I would just request we get back to the item at hand rather than district elections.
understood.
Thank you.
Because it's on Fjord, and got it. So I don't know how this took on a life of its own to starting into construction.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
Final comments, and we'll take it out to public comment, and I do have one speaker slip, CJ Jackson.
Mayor Urick, Councilmember CJ Jackson. I'm here on behalf of Alisal Properties, and in such, I'm also representing the residents of Rancho Alisal. As you can imagine, when a bypass is discussed, my nose goes up like an infield fly, because you can't bypass something if you can't get through it. And in 1991, there was something that wasn't on there, and what's on there now is a golf course and property that I am somewhat sensitive about. What I'd like to talk a little bit are some takeaways from this experience, because you're going to be here again if you can't address some of what transpired. This took a life of its own on social media. So I think there needs to be a social media policy where you address or at least are apprised of that which rises up, because social media is beholden to no data or no facts. It can rise of its own. And I will tell you that this bypass has risen every 6 to 8 years since I've lived here for 26, including the Valley Blueprint, including the county general plan. It rose up well in the 70s and 80s when a bypass along Baseline was considered abutting the property where the Presbyterian Church is. And people at that time took Mr. Thomas's perspective that all traffic should make its way through Solvang. So, in part, the burden you face is somewhat of a self-inflicted injury. But a couple of things. You can remove things from your capital improvement program. You can't remove things from a circulation element until you replace the circulation element. But a common process of general plan is a purge process, whereby the current plans are reviewed for what elements need to be purged and what elements need to remain for further construction. That way, it goes to the conclusion of the GPAC process and of the general plan process, but it has as a component, let's remove the chaff that we, as Mr. Infanti most effectively put, take it out. So I would suggest to your process to create a purge process that allows after the audit to have that removed. Secondly, this is a platform for me to put a little bit of a beef that I have. You have Mr. Oroza's report from 1991. And the problem that I want to encourage you to think about is somebody paid for that report. And City of Solvang pays for reports. and they contain large amounts of data that may not be germane to the immediate argument you're dealing with. Mr. Rose had a number of suggestions for traffic calming and addressing the issues north of Mission Drive, perhaps to address the numerous traffic burdens that are posed there for giving access and egress in Elverhoy and utilizing the other elements of your current circulation infrastructure differently. I'll use as an example another city, one of them being Santa Barbara, have utilized one-way streets. Now, everybody groans, but you can utilize one-way streets to create somewhat of a more express proposition. All of those ideas were included in the hard work of Mr. Rose in 1991, and then were put aside because the big dots on the page were dismissed. You have a library of resources. I think back to the previous council who had talked about urban boundary line. Well, there was a huge study with lots of data about the cost, expenses, and potential income of sphere of influence and annexation. Now, you don't have to consider sphere of influence and annexation, but the data's there. So my encouragement to you is to examine the library that you have of things you've paid for. They may, as Mr. Rose's report does, demonstrate a host of things. And then finally, be prepared for, as I said, for social media, because things take a life of their own. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CJ.
Well said.
I don't have any other speaker slips. Seeing none, Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Council and City Manager. We've been kicking this, 75 down the road, or whatever year that is, and keeps getting kicked down, and I think we need to 86 it at this point, unless we have clear direction on this. That easement that you're talking about was granted in 72, and with Santanez, the mobile home estates, and that makes it, 52 years? I would say that's an abandoned easement at this point. I don't know legally if it is, but you've got a lot of problems going through the park area there. Environmental, you got scrub jay habitats, you got all sorts of things going on, and you got a speed limit issue. I see that on Alisal, you're gonna reduce it down to 40. Now, let's say we had a bypass, it's 25 through that neighborhood. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna up the speed limit through there? No, you can't do that, it's a neighborhood. So there was a New York Times article put out a couple months ago, I'll send it to you. They were looking at all sorts of ways of trying to flow traffic, and they were dividing neighborhoods, and now they're turning that around and saying we need to bring neighborhoods together. And so here we are, we're gonna try and divide a neighborhood, and that's not gonna be a good deal for anybody that lives along that. I live right in front, property values are gonna sink, and city coffers probably won't enjoy that much. So anyway, I think it needs to be 86th. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers, sir? And just make sure you identify yourself.
My name's Peter Laird. I'm a resident just off of Fjord Road. And a couple things I'd like to point out. One is there is a 2020 Santanez Valley Circulation and Traffic Study that I think is now part of the packet, or I hope it is. Mentions nothing about a Fjord bypass. And that was, I believe, engaged by SBK. And it's hopefully you're familiar with it. If you're not familiar with it, you should be. In regard to the traffic, or the capital improvement program, the capital improvement program was approved by the city council. So this isn't an issue that has just been lying dormant. It's something that you've actually put in to paper. So our position is it's an active issue. Otherwise, why would the city approve it in the capital improvement plan? That's our point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laird. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that's in the room? Seeing none. Is there anyone that wishes to speak that's out in Zoom?
We have Lansing Duncan raised hand first.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me? This is Lansing Duncan.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. I've lived in the valley now 32 years, and I lived in Solvang for 14 years. And of course, I did live in the valley, and actually I was serving as the 3rd District Planning Commissioner at the time of the Save the Sunny Fields campaign. So I'm quite aware of the broader issue that a bypass originally sought to address. But of course, this is something different now. This is simply an extension. And what I'd like you to do is try and keep a big picture when you look at this. By requesting this report, your council is acknowledging certain concerns expressed by residents of the Fjord Drive neighborhood regarding future plans that might impact their neighborhood. It's understandable that these residents are concerned, but as officials responsible for the welfare of the entire city, both in the short term and the long term, you need to remain aware of that big picture. You must be aware of how all the puzzle parts fit together now and in the future before you toss any individual parts that cause concern to particular residents. As a veteran of numerous comprehensive planning projects, I can attest to the fact there are always red flag issues that cause concern for certain constituents. And fortunately, we live in a community and society that encourages citizens to express those concerns. But we also live in a community that overwhelmingly identifies traffic as an issue that needs to be addressed. And the best way to address such an issue is to look at it comprehensively in the context of the whole, such as in the general plan update. This staff report with the attachments only starts to fill out how this issue fits in the big picture. We all know how short-term, politically attractive, piecemeal decisions can handicap the larger community. We're already taking shortcuts through parking lots and residential neighborhoods because of abandoned rights of way and lack of connectivity. We have to remember that the circulation system is only as strong as the weakest link in the chain, and you need every link. I don't mean to suggest that a concept originally conceived 50 years ago can never be revised or abandoned, but it would be foolish and irresponsible for a council to throw out any puzzle piece or tool in your toolkit before you see the big picture and the general plan update and the latest traffic information that will provide. So thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Next.
If anybody on Zoom would like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand on Zoom or unmute yourself. I'm not seeing any raised hands at this point.
All
See
right,
none?
we'll just bring it back for final discussion. There's just no action required on here. Any other comments? No?
Other than I think Lansing Duncan made a lot of sense in what he just talked about.
We need to let the process play out. That's it. Thank you.
Wait, one last thing if I may, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So the capital improvement plan has the bypass on it, right? But it was 10 years out, if I remember correctly.
Correct, it's in the outer years.
6 years out.
It's 6 years out?
6 years plus, so we have more specific plan up to year 6, and then year 6 is just kind of a catch-all That's still on the books, but we are not working on it.
Gotcha. So regardless of whether it is addressed in the general plan, we could take it off of the capital projects plan?
Correct.
Because nobody seems to think it's, Lansing had a great point, but most people don't seem to think that it's worthwhile to even consider it at this point unless it goes in the general plan. And we can always put it back in the capital project plan if we need to.
Correct. When the general plan goes through its update, we will have an overall comprehensive review and update to the capital improvement program because there will be most likely some substantial changes in the direction outlined by the general plan. So the capital improvement program will be completely revised again.
Okay, based on all right, the capital improvement plan will be revised based on the general plan?
Correct. So general plan is the bigger
So
plan document.
Gotcha. But that means taking an action on the capital improvement plan at this point makes no sense because we're gonna change it anyway.
Yes, and from practical perspective, once again, staff is not working on it. It's just something 6 years out. I would say the only, any kind of consideration of something like that being in a capital improvement plan is from a long-term financial planning perspective. So the only thing that it kind of indicates right now is that there may be a need for significant influx of funds to fix some of the traffic issues. But that's how far that has any effective purpose at this point.
Yeah, the funding estimate I've heard on that's gonna be way off in a few years anyway.
Correct.
So that's unlikely to be done just for the cost part of it, so.
It will, of course, once again, the
Okay.
general plan is the lead based on the general plan and that long-term and planning policy. We then revise the capital improvement program, and with that process, we revise the costs and our best estimate of that and create a funding program.
Thank you.
All right, that's it. Moving on to item, actually, we take a 5-minute break. We take a 5-minute break at 8:27. Come back at 8:32. Thank you. All right, bring it back from break at 8:35. And moving on to agenda item number 7. Madam Clerk.
Agenda item number 7 is receive marketing update. We should have IDK with us on Zoom. Here you see Scott. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for having us. In light of the agenda items after us and the current time, we'll try and keep this as brief as possible and then happy to answer any questions. So joining me as always, Jamie, our social media genius, and Anna, who works on our PR. So it has been quite a busy month in Solvang. We were really excited to support the Rotary in pulling together the parade, with the very rapid change in requirements from the state really, and the county. So we were really happy to support them with that. It was nice to see a few members of the council, including the Mayor Pro Tem, out there. So that was exciting. We continue to work with Roger from the Wheels and Windmills Car Show, which is coming up soon. I had a chat with one of the members of the Danish Days Committee, so we're working with them to understand their plans and see what, if anything, is needed from the collective we on that. In terms of the social media for the past month, Jamie, do you want to give us just some very high-level stats?
Sure. Okay, so I have numbers from June. In June, we were about 250,000 impressions, so those were eyes on our posts. At the end of the month, we hit 19,762 followers. Since the end of June, we're now at 20,500 followers, so we've gained a ton since then. We outperformed travel industry growth by 182%. On Facebook, we've reached just under 70,000 people. We're at 30,580 followers. We grew about 150 new followers that month. Looking at the best performing posts, of course, the Able Stevers do well. The exterior shots, windmills, so we are continuing to push that. And then we wanted to show just follower interactions and showing how people are definitely planning their visits to Solvang, and they are looking at our social media for tips on where to go when they're here. So one comment is tagging their friend, asking when are we going, her saying anytime, and then she's saying Saturday. Another one saying we're visiting Wednesday, what are some must-sees and do's? Another one being, it will be my first time visiting next weekend, so we plan on having a lot of everything. I think that was on a food post. So that's where we're at on social media.
Great, thank you. And I will say that Jamie is very good at responding, at all hours of the day and night to folks who are messaging DMs or commenting on our posts and providing very good customer service in addition to her highly creative kind of take on social media. So, and then obviously one of the things that I don't talk about a lot because it's harder to really pinpoint and track is our paid traditional media placements. I know specifically Mayor Pro Tem Arona had some questions about that that I was not able to answer at one of the last meetings. And the two most recent, we paid I think almost $8,000 for a placement in Westways magazine, which is the big AAA deal that was a co-op with Visit SYB and Buellton. So each, it was a $21,000 ad, and we each split it 3 ways. Obviously, it has good, good numbers for a traditional media, but it's harder for us to track. So I don't spend a lot of time reporting on those, unfortunately. The other one that we did is we did a paid advertisement with 805 Living magazine. I do know that that one actually performed pretty well because we did see a lot of folks come into our social channels from 805 Living. And then we were targeting folks or families, especially during the pandemic. And so we did a paid partnership with Rotary, which is kind of a hybrid digital / traditional. So we did a paid partnership with them, and they did a big email blast to their, I think, 300,000 subscribers, working with us to promote tourism for families. So that was really exciting. So that's it on digital marketing and traditional marketing. And then over, Anna, do you want to give us a couple of super high-level highlights on PR wins for the month?
I don't have anything put together for the month because mine was a whole year, so that'll have to wait until.
Yeah, got it. So sorry about that. Anna, I put you on the spot without telling you what I was doing. I apologize. So that's a perfect segue. Actually, we are working, obviously our marketing contract began in February of 2020 and then was almost immediately ended in March, and then came back again in June. So we have a full year under our belt. So we're working to pull all of the successes together and rooms for improvement together to present at the next meeting, sort of a year-round look back and see how we did. I can tell, just anecdotally, obviously we'll provide actual data, but anecdotally, I spent a lot of time, obviously not as much as the members of the council, but I spent a lot of time in Solvang, and anecdotally it has been quite busy. Many of the business owners that I've talked to are doing exceptionally well. The TOT for the last reported month, which I believe was April, was the highest April on record, which I think is great news. The occupancy was a little bit lower than April 2019, but that kind of reinforces, and we'll show this with data in our upcoming report, but it reinforces what our stated objective was a year ago, which is that we wanted to introduce Solvang to a new market without alienating the old market. And I think, seeing a slight dip in average occupancy rates for the month, or for the month over year, or month or whatever, seeing a slight dip in occupancy, but seeing such a tremendous growth in revenue just points to higher ADRs overall within Solvang, which, if you can get more money for a hotel room in the middle of a pandemic, then I can't imagine what it's going to be like in normal times if we ever get back there. So that's exciting. Also on the horizon, we're working on these videos, the buckets that we've identified that folks are interested in. We have some scripting and like an overall look and feel that we put together for that. I mentioned the events, digital marketing, I mentioned that. We'll have our end of year in August. And then this one is actually really exciting for me. I don't have a lot to share officially, but we have made an offer to somebody to support us with the permitting and helping us gather data to sort of back up what the work that we're doing. And also I'm big on sustainability and community engagement, and this is our opportunity to sort of reinvest in the community that we've been a part of now for 18 months. So we're excited to have, at least for the length of this current contract, which ends on December 30th, we're excited to have a part-time W-2 employee on the payroll, hopefully here in the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited to introduce them to the council, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope that wasn't too brief.
Are there any questions of this report?
Yeah, a couple of quick questions, Scott. Back when we had the Food Network filming, there was also a Toyota commercial. And I believe that's already aired. Can you tell me if you can feel any reactions from that, sense any reactions, measure any reactions? What did it do us any good, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I will chat with we have a data analyst on staff, and I will chat with them and see if I can pull some numbers specifically for that Toyota commercial. Obviously anytime that Solvang is there, it's almost subliminal. We were actually chatting about that in our team meeting the other day, because we have several folks who are like, oh, Solvang, yeah, I've heard, it's amazing. I've heard that it's a cool place. I heard there's a waterfall over there somewhere I have to see. And so it's like, there's like little messages, and we just keep bombarding people with like little elements of Solvang, like windmill, 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 horses, windmill, 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 waterfall, windmill, 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 amazing food. And then all of a sudden they see a windmill and like, I really want to go Solvang this weekend. I'm not sure why. So hopefully the commercials sort of have that additional impact. So I will make sure to specifically ask that question of our data analyst and provide that in our upcoming report, not just for the Toyota commercial, but all the other filming that we've supported. The Toyota commercial came through a local scout, so I would love to take credit for that, but cannot. But I know they worked directly with the museum, and the museum was happy to host them.
Yeah, I heard it came off really well. But last time, I don't remember when it was, but it seems to me that you had mentioned that we've got 3 or 4 more of those types of things going to happen down here this year, filmings of some type for some reason. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so there's still a couple of large productions that are in the pipeline. You know, as with all things television and movie, they change quite a bit. So I have been in touch with the large show from Amazon, which I actually think I was telling you Netflix for a long time, but it turns out it was Amazon. I was wrong. But we've been in touch with that location scout, and you know, they're still trying to get the director up here to, you know, actually frame the shots and figure out exactly what they're going to do, but they still have planned that script around Solvang, or the scenery in Solvang. So I'm excited for that one still. There was one that was coming with Jeff Goldblum. That one has not come yet. They were supposed to come, but it was all very, very last minute. They wanted to do it within 2 weeks of reaching out to us, and they needed a local family to do a birthday party. It was all very last minute, and they were also all coming from the UK. So obviously, with all of the things that happened, you know, at the beginning of the summer in the UK, that one fell off. But we're still in touch with them, and I'm confident that that one will come. We did support 2 reality shows. You know, I'm not a particular fan of the genre, but there are plenty of people that are. And so there were 2 reality shows in town a couple of weeks ago. And so when those episodes air later in the fall, I anticipate, you know, that will, both of them have a very young audience. So I think both of those we'll see a reaction in our social channels to those episodes.
Thank you.
I know my team was really upset with me that I wouldn't authorize travel to go down and personally escort them around. So the younger folks were very excited about those 2 productions.
Are there any other questions? I had a couple, Scott. Just, is there anything going on past the wheels and windmills? Because I know that's set for October, and you were talking about Danish Days. Is the Wine Country Half Marathon, is that still on track?
The Wine Country Half, they just actually reached out a couple of days ago. I'm going to try and facilitate a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. They want to work to highlight local businesses. So I think it's a great opportunity for the Chamber to work with them to ensure that the businesses are benefiting from their participation in, or their event coming to Solvang. So that one is still very much in the works as of the moment. We are working on a concept for a fall event as our contract requires of our own. We have a couple of ideas that we're working on fleshing out and hope to present those to the city manager soon. And then of course Yule Fest, we should be able to go live with our Yule Fest programming by the middle of August, so we can start capitalizing on those hotel bookings and generating that FOMO, you know, I love that word, for folks for Christmas. So the race is definitely coming. That is, the Fall Fest did apply and withdrew their application. So the Solvang Fall Festival, which was the large event with the Ferris wheel produced by Infuego Events out of Santa Barbara, withdrew their application for this year. So right now the big ones are obviously Yule Fest, working backwards, Yule Fest, the SB County Half Marathon, and Wheels and Windmills, Danish Days, and then a TBD event in there in the middle that we're producing on behalf of the city.
All right. I had a call from the people that are organizing the nativity that we normally have, and because the Theater Fest is not available, which is where they had normally done it, and then last year they ended up doing it in the park. They were asking who the contact person is. Would that still be you if they wanted to try to do something in the park and or somewhere in the city? That's what they're looking for.
I would actually defer to Zena. She and I have been talking about that actually over the last couple of months about, you know, smaller events that are more community focused and less tourism focused, and what that process looks like. So if it would be appropriate, I'd defer to the city manager. I'm happy to chat with them and make sure that we're advertising the nativity as part of the overall Yule Fest. I think that's really important, and it is a big component of what's happening that month. So I'm happy to work with them in that regard. Your specific question on whether or not they would come to us or to Rec and Park for the park, I think I'll defer to the city manager.
Okay.
So based on the current special events permit guidelines, the way we have them set up as of today is that applications for events in the park come directly to the city if it's an event that's expected to attract less than 500 people. Obviously here Scott is hitting on a point on the fact that it's going to be happening at the same time as Yule Fest. So the city will be happy, as far as our city staff, to provide the connectivity for that group and then connect it with IDK as part of the overall programming.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to clarify where I should direct them, because I mean, as you mentioned, Yule Fest, that's a pretty big deal for a lot of the local residents around here, especially when it's a couple of shows. It's all free, it's nice, so thank you. Appreciate all the work that you guys all do there, keeping us all apprised of all the happenings on the media front. Moving on to item number 8.
Item number 8 is receive a report on solving crime trends from the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department. We have our Police Chief Lieutenant Green here with us on Zoom. Sorry, Jeff, that it's been kind of late, and I know you're on Zoom for a reason, so I'll let you dive into this.
Thank you, Nina. And good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight. A little down, so I needed to be home today. We're going to go over the crime stats and just talk about some things going with Solvang. And as a reminder, we want to go over the 2020 results from last year, which obviously about 9 months of that encompassed COVID. So you guys were down 7% in your property crimes and 36% in your violent crimes. And that makes sense because obviously during the shutdown, you didn't have as much of a populace to be there visiting, and the hotels were closed and tourism was down. So that kind of makes sense. So looking into this year as we progress, we're halfway through with our stats going through June. And I know that I get asked a lot comparison between you and Buellton. Obviously, inside the county area, two cities are about the same size, different internal structures, but population-wise is similar. So I did a small comparison, and in short, aside from calls for service, you guys are a little higher in your calls for service so far this year, but all the other stats, you're lower than Buellton. And that also makes sense to us as I talked to Buellton City Council and their city manager that being right off the 101 gives them a disadvantage, and also they're only about 18 miles from Lompoc, which a lot of people know is experiencing a bit of a higher crime rate right now. So as we look at the stats, all your major stats are pretty good at zeros, and then which major stats would be, you know, your homicide, forcible rape, etc., robbery. Your assaults for the 2021, you're at 11 so far this year, and if we're looking at the trends of last year, you would be at 12, so you're just slightly down. Buellton's up. Your burglaries, you're a little bit higher, and the reason I start with talking about with your assaults, burglaries, and I'm going to also touch on your thefts, is because, as you know, we still experience, I believe it's called Emergency Order Number 4 from the courts, which basically is zero bail. So as we catch some of these people, we can only keep them in custody for about 4 to 6 hours before they get out. So it makes sense that some of our property crimes, our assaults, and our burglary crimes are gonna go up. Overall, throughout a lot of the stuff, your residential crimes is even. I mean, you've only had one residential crime this year, I'm sorry, burglary this year. Commercial burglaries, you're at 2. Institutional, 0. You did have 3 others, which I believe are associated to vehicles. So, and this is where I was mentioning earlier that the thefts are a little high right now. Your overall theft rate, you're at 37, and this time last year was at 22. So again, last year you didn't have as much of a populace. Your tourism was down due to COVID. We kind of opened back up the last few months, but we are seeing the thefts, the rates going up there. Your vehicle thefts are down. You only have 3 for the year so far. And so unless you have any questions on those crimes, I'm going to go over into traffic and talk about traffic and traffic crimes. So is there any questions on those crimes before I proceed?
Any questions?
I do have a question. The rate, is that based in per a certain amount per number of residents? What does that mean, 22, 37?
It's your rate I compared to last year, and we track the previous 4 years is what's readily available to me. So that's how I look to see if there's something going up or down, to see if there's a problem or not. I mean, in reality, when you're up or down 1 or 2 cases, percentage-wise, that might be high, but when you don't have that many cases, it's actually pretty flat, you know. So the only one that is really showing a spike is the thefts. And thefts is under a lot of categories. Mail theft, for instance, which has been very hot lately, where people are going in and just taking mail out of people's mailboxes. I mean, we're having a big rash of that, and that counts in your theft category. So I haven't had a chance to break all of that down, but I would imagine that that's some of it. And again, when I say rate, I'm talking that so far this year, as of the end of June, you're at 37, whereas last year at the end of June, you were at 22. So that is an increase. That's the biggest increase I see in here. That's a plus 15 increase. So if you were to trend that out, you'd have a more significant number than you did in the years prior.
Okay, so 37, that's 37 incidents.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I just forgot what it was. Somebody else go ahead.
I don't think anybody else had a question.
Yes, Lieutenant Green, do you get incidents recorded of packages being stolen off of properties, front doors, et cetera, the porch pirates?
Yes, and that would be added in here in the theft category, and that's some of the referrals I'm making about mail theft.
Okay, thanks.
Questions, yes.
Are there any other questions? Go on to the next traffic. Love traffic.
So,
In a
as
different
you
way.
know, you guys receive a lot of complaints regarding traffic violations and what is perceived to be a lack of traffic enforcement along Chalk Hill and Vibor. I can tell you that last week alone, your deputies went out and wrote 22 tickets just in 1 week, all between Chalk Hill and Vibor. And most of those, as you would imagine, go to the locals, because the locals are the ones that know how to use that to skirt 246 or Mission Drive. And needless to say, it's not very popular when we do this, but we are making an impact, and they are hearing about it, and the word's getting out there. And because of that, I think with the addition of traffic enforcement that we've done, when we received some of these complaints before, the city manager and I worked together, where she authorized some additional funding to use towards targeting that area. We wrote 45 sites towards the end of the year and the beginning of this year, and where I was keeping track and capturing it. And now I just started keeping track again and challenged my deputies to the fact that because of the complaints and the desire of the city to handle this, we went out and hit it really, really, really hard. So, like I said, right now you're at 48 citations that we wrote just this year alone, and the vast majority of them are in that area. And I believe because of that, your traffic accident rate is down too. It's much lower than, Buellton's, for instance, so. And it's trending lower for the year. So enforcement of traffic directly involves, or directly contributes to keeping traffic accidents down. So, let's see. Your DUI arrests, they're up a little bit. We've had 9 this year, compared to 4 last year. But again, you didn't have the tourism, a lot of things were closed last year. So what I did was I looked back to 2019, where at this time in 2019, you had 16 arrests. So we're still faring normal, if not slightly better than years prior, if you remove the COVID year. So overall, you're at 18 felonies total so far this year, which is about the same as you were last year. We're running fairly normal on that, maybe slightly high. Your misdemeanors for the year, they're up a little bit, but again, that makes sense. You've got these people that are stealing stuff, and we're actually catching a bunch of them, but we're not able to keep them in jail, so they kind of get out and tend to repeat some of them. So, so that's a little bit of a spike, but not major. That coincides with your thefts, because most thefts are misdemeanor most of the time. And like I mentioned, your calls for service are up a little bit for the year, but again, we've opened back up. So, you know, it kind of makes sense. If I look back at 2019, your calls for service are slightly less. So you're still holding fairly normal for where we should be, in my opinion. I think that should cover most everything. Everything else is pretty standard and normal. Do you have any questions?
Are there any other questions? I just was wondering on the DUIs that I know in the past we had been trying to track where the person that was arrested had been served last. And are any of those that were arrested here, were those being served from here, or were they served outside our city limits and then caught as they came into our city limits?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I didn't track those down. I can fine tune it if we need to find that. But in this data sheet that's produced by our statistician, it doesn't give me that. It gives me the number. I would have to do additional work to track that in and see where those DUIs are coming from, whether they're coming from the Valley side, the Buellton side, or internal Solvang side. So that would take a little bit, but I could get that number back to you guys.
I would appreciate that, and I think that would be something that Maggie Johnson would appreciate from the Youth Coalition as well, just to have that information for them on their fighting the DUI and the alcohol abuse and all that type of stuff.
I did have, when I first got in here, I noted that sometimes when deputies respond to the hospital, there might be an incident where, for whatever reason, somebody was brought there and it results in an arrest of maybe who knows what. Could be drug use, UI, drunkenness, all sorts of different things. I did make sure that we backtracked and the location of where that offense occurred should be the location, and that the arrest location being the Solvang Hospital doesn't count towards Solvang stats. So that's one of the things I made sure to adjust when I first got here.
It's where your highest crime is, in the hospital.
Yeah, it is.
That makes sense, Sergeant, Lieutenant.
Were some of those assaults DVs, domestic violence? Because I know I had heard that was a trend going through 2020. Seen it in the courts.
Everybody being cooped up.
Yeah.
I agree with you that I did hear that, but I don't really reflect, it doesn't break them down.
Okay.
Separate DV versus, that I can see, DV versus other. So even with that though, your violent crime is still down for the year. So Solvang area seems to be, but I do know that is a trend in a lot of the big cities we're reporting on. I do know that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Tell your troops thanks. We appreciate what they do.
Yeah. Kudos to you guys again for how you handled Sunday's event yesterday with the gun.
Right. I appreciate that. I will let them know. I too agree with you. I think they did a very good job with a possible, horrific situation that could have gone a whole different way, and I commended them myself. So I will let them know that you guys say the same.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Stay safe out there, LT. right. Is there any direction, I didn't even ask, is there any other direction that the council would like to get to Lieutenant? I see he's off, but, or no, he's still there.
Our public is still here.
I guess just one direction that I was thinking on as far as the traffic enforcement, have you guys gone down and done anything on Fjord as well?
Not lately, because we haven't had a ton of complaints. Like I said, the focus of a lot of our complaints comes from the north end of the city.
Right.
Because that's where the traffic skirts through and they break off down 5th Street, or they break up Steep Mesa and come across Chalk Hill and Viaborg to get to the other side of town. I don't want to open the Pandora's box on Fjord again, since you guys talked about it quite extensively, but as you imagine, if that was to open up, yeah, we'd be probably running traffic quite a bit down there.
All right, thank you. I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess.
Let's try not to go there.
I know. All right, well, thank you again for your report, and I hope you feel better. All right, on to item number 9.
Okay.
And do I need to recuse myself on this?
I would say based on your prior decision making, yes.
Okay. I'll recuse myself for item number 9.
Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. Item number 9 is approved contract amendment with Santa Barbara County for law enforcement services for the fiscal year 2021-22, which is the current year. The contract cities have reached a tentative agreement with the Santa Barbara County for fiscal year 21-22 law enforcement services contract costs. We ask you to review the proposed contract in concept, and the recommendation is to approve it. As you would remember, the whole question here came up this winter past winter, when we received first proposal from the Santa Barbara County with an increase of approximately 37% in costs for law enforcement services for the same services we contracted for in the prior year. So the cost in the prior year was $1.8 million. We are contracting for one DSU unit, meaning that we have coverage of one sheriff's deputy at all times, 24/7 within the city of Solvang that we pay for. And the original proposal was about almost $2.5 million, which obviously that was a very significant increase for the city of Solvang. It was the same situation for other contract cities, which are City of Goleta, City of Buellton, City of Carpinteria. The cities collaboratively went through a negotiation or dispute resolution process with the Sheriff's Department and the county, and it took us several months. It was a lengthy process, but we reached this tentative agreement, and the recommendation is only to agree to this 1-year agreement. We did find a number of issues with the overall model, with how the costs are calculated. And there's really very little control and lots of surprises in terms of the total cost that model can produce. And it's really somewhat, or we consider it to be arbitrary to some extent. So that was the nature of the dispute. We recommend that the contract be extended for 21-22 at the cost of $2.15 million. The contract language is included in this packet. There may be some small tweaks to it, but it reflects the nature of the agreement between all the parties at this time. For future contracts, we'll be continuing to or reinstating negotiation process. So we have 1 more year under the 5-year contract based on the current model as it's formed today. So the agreement is that we will be coming back into negotiations with the Santa Barbara County for year 22-23.
What was the percent of increase And then what was the percent, or what is the percent of the agreement?
I can
You
do
know.
that. So a total increase, the prior cost was $1.8 million. Current proposal or tentative agreement is for 2.150. So a total increase of $350,000 for the year, which would equal to 19.4% increase.
19 is what we're agreeing to?
Correct. Which is still, I mean,
No, that
well, this is, yes. This,
19 is what they requested.
no.
That's
No.
the 2.4?
They requested close to 37% increase.
Sorry.
We have negotiated it down to 19.4.
It was, what was the original? 20,
37.
37, and we're down to 19.
It is still significantly larger than anything we have
Understood.
ever experienced.
I understand. Do we get a sense or that you can share or should share on what caused that increase?
It was majorly attributed to how the model is set up and the relationship between nominator and denominator. I think the language of the contract itself didn't fully explain or contemplate that model. It was then created based on the general language by the auditor's office. And so the model based on overall services provided and the hours that the sheriff's department provides, including emergencies and whatnot, impacts the cost and the overhead and all the costs that then get passed on to the contract cities. So it was just a swing in the computation that was extremely wild, and that's why the proposal is to only accept this 1 year extension and go back to the negotiation table and come up with a model and an agreement that is much more stable for all the parties involved.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Steph? Seeing none, we'll take it out to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak?
We have one member of the public still on Zoom. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. Seeing no public comment.
Okay, then we'll bring it back for discussion and action.
I think we have to approve it. I move we approve the contract.
Well, let me say real quick first, I'd like the residents to know that there was never any discussion of staffing decreases. We had a really hard time pinpointing what we were getting for the extra money, and I want to commend the rest of the council and staff for working so hard with the sheriff's department, instead of just saying, oh, I guess we have to pay the $2.4 million, to going back and negotiating. These are taxpayer dollars. These are the residents. This is the residents' money, and I think that everybody here did a really good job fighting for those taxpayer dollars. So thank you, everyone.
I'd second that.
Good point.
All right. So anybody want to make any other comments, or would anybody like to make a motion? We have
I'll
a
move we approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Infante?
Yes.
Mayor Protem Arona?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
Mayor Yurek excused himself, so passes 4-0.
Okay.
Nice try.
I was already home to have dinner. Excellent. All right.
Did you bring your time card?
Just punched that back in again. All right. Thank you for handling that, Mayor Pro Tem. And moving on to item number 10. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
Item number 10 is appoint a council delegate to the Santa Barbara County Library Advisory Committee. This came up in council comments at the last meeting, and the Santa Barbara Board of Supervisors Library Advisory Committee needs an official delegate to be appointed by the City Council. So this item is here in front of you today to appoint a delegate. I believe Councilmember Clark had volunteered during the last council
Are
meeting.
there any questions to that? Do we want to rebuttal on that one?
Briefly, in 2018, I became when we still had the ad hoc committees, I became the representative for the ad hoc committee for the libraries for the city of Solvang, and I worked with Shirley Stacy, who was the CLAC member there. She had some health issues, et cetera. She's doing better now, but she had a hard time keeping up with some of the stuff, but she did a wonderful job for many, many, many years. And I guess she has stepped down. So the Friends of the Library head, Anissa, knows how much I love books. And they've asked me to do that. So if anybody else here would rather do it, I'm fine with that too. But I also have a passion for books and libraries, so I'm happy to. I have a full plate as it is, but I'm happy to take this on as well.
Well, I think we all appreciate that, and I'd just like to put out a little thank you again to Shirley Stacy for all the years that she represented the city in the library committees.
Yeah.
And all the time that she put in.
Cool.
Definitely really appreciate that for all that you did for Solvang. Do we need to make a motion for this?
Yes.
Can I have a motion to?
Since there is a
appoint
motion, probably should
Robert?
take public
Oh,
comment.
public
We
comment.
have one person
Well,
online with
I
us.
wanna-
Somebody's gonna learn that they know I can't read.
If you'd like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand. See no public comment.
I'll bring it back for final comments and a motion.
I'll move that we appoint Councilmember Clark to be the library committee member.
Second that.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Second.
I can still get canceled by the Board of Supervisors.
Councilmember Infante.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Marone.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Yuri.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
I should have said no, just on principle.
Just for fun, just for fun.
Just for that.
You know I just look at the pictures anyway.
All right. And moving on to item 11. Pink.
Item 11 is AB 1234, report out and council closing comments.
Do we have any council closing comments at this point?
Or how many people here are going to Sacramento for the League of California Cities? I think it's outstanding, and it's useful and wonderful that you're going, so you'll have something to report when you get back from that, but they're great events.
So you're not going then, Robert?
No.
Okay.
I have a conflict of a schedule.
That's
And
fine.
it's,
I'm just-
there's
Well, I know you've
classes.
been to it before.
I've been to
Those are
two
new.
of them. There's classes that you pick that suit your interests, and I learned a lot. The best part is the networking, which you'll really get into and enjoy.
I'm trying
And I
to
just
get
thought, save a
Are
few
you gonna
bucks.
go, Charlie?
I'm hoping so.
Okay.
I put in my time, so.
Yeah, I'm looking back.
Yeah, I'm trying to work it out as well, so hopefully that'll be good. But other than that,
That's you and I.
we don't have any final comments, and I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:20.